Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on this rosemary bonsai that I put together in July of last year. These two rosemary plants were given to me by my wife. They were all growing lopsided and she wanted them brought back more compact. So I planted the two plants close together and I rotated the one around so to fill in one side of the tree. It's still quite bare on this face, but hopefully in the future with continual pruning, I can get it to kind of fill out and be a little more symmetrical. There's a look at the two trunks on the tree. So there's the thicker one and the thinner one. And these were grown from cuttings and they're about 4 years old now. I'll show you a quick recap of the work I did to the rosemaries last summer. On this rosemary, you can see how it's been growing towards the light over here and it almost looks like a windblown tree. They're a temperate tree, so they need a cool period in winter, but not so cold that, yeah, too much cold and they'll die. All right, so here I go. I'm going to tip it on its side, pull gently. There it is. Get it on the turntable here. Okay, I think I'm ready to wash the roots. All right, into the water it goes. All right, I'm going to separate this branch now. Cut it off here, like that, and I can plant this separately. So I've got my two trees here, and I was thinking maybe planting them kind of nesting against each other. Kind of filling in this between where there's no branches on this side. I'll give the rosemary a watering now, and I'll spin it around as I'm watering it so you can see it from all angles. So here I go. Today I'll be continuing the work, trying to bring them back more compact and try and get some style to them as a bonsai. I brought this plant up from the basement. It's been chilling down there all winter at hovering around 10 degrees Celsius. So it's just kind of been dormant. It is under grow lights. And I was surprised it needed a fair amount of watering over the winter. I did have another one that I tried overwintering in the basement. And it was kind of in the back corner of the room and I couldn't get to it. And it died. And I thought it died from the cold, but I think it was probably from drying out, not the cold weather in the basement. So yeah, even though they're dormant kind of in the winter, you still got to water them. And I water it about once a week. Whenever my wife needs some rosemary for potatoes, she goes down in the basement and just clips off the top of some of the strong growth, kind of using bonsai techniques. I root pruned and repotted the two rosemaries into bonsai soil last summer, and I planted sedum and thyme as a ground cover just to make it look a little more decorative. I'm going to begin today's work by cleaning up the landscape. I'm going to begin by just clipping away all the sedum that's growing around the trunks here, clearing it back. It's really rooted in here. You can see all the root hairs growing off of the sedum in midair, kind of like aerial roots. They root really easily, these sedums. And they spread quite rapidly too. You can see all the aerial roots coming off of the sedum. All those little white hairs there. Yeah, just amazing. I guess it's quite humid in the basement. Even though it's cool, things do grow. Especially my jades, they love growing in that cool weather. I'm going to look at the structure and branch structure of the trees just to see if there's any kind of branches I can eliminate to try and get some kind of a design out of this rosemary, something I can build on in the future. So I'm going to study the plants and just come up with some kind of a styling plan. I do like this as the front of the planting. The trunk line kind of comes up towards you and, you know, there's not much branching coming out this direction, but I'm hoping that changes in the future, that I can get more foliage on this side of the tree. You can see it's kind of one-sided, but yeah, that's something I'm hoping will develop in the future. Now there's a couple of lower branches here that are very weak. This one that comes right out the front, it comes around and basically the foliage is dead on it. So I'm going to remove that one. And then there's another branch that's really low down here. There's a thicker branch coming off higher, which is quite thick. So I've got to decide. I think this branch is too low for the you know, the proportions of the tree, and this branch is kind of too thick compared to the trunk diameter. But it may be something that I just have to deal with. You know, try and grow the rest of the tree out so it, you know, the trunk gets thicker and this branch stays about the same. So I'm going to start removing this weak branch out front and that lowest one that's just too low on the tree. So here I go. So off comes the front one. Now, you can leave deadwood on it, which I've done, but this one's sticking straight out towards the viewer. If somewhere around here is the front view, so there's probably not much point. But maybe I will, because, you know, I can rotate the front to more like that direction. So this is off to the side a bit. So I'll keep that stub. I'll just prune off the living branch or barely living branch above it. So here I go. Like that. You can see that was just barely alive. I think it would have died quickly. And then that brings us around to this lowest branch. And again, it's just too low. And I don't think I want to keep deadwood on that, just because it's so low. So I'm going to remove it totally. So here I go. Like that. Smells so good in here. The whole greenhouse smells like rosemary. So that's kind of got those lower branches raised. Kind of gives more of a tree-like proportions. Now there's some wild crossing branches up here. Let me show you those. Here's a look at them. And I think this is a very wild looking tree. And I think you've just got to embrace, you know, this wild nature to it. You're not going to style this rosemary to look like a stereotypical bonsai. It's going to be this wild looking thing. Basically, I want to keep all that wildness in the tree, but I want to make it more compact and more tree-like. I'm going to start shortening the branches now. So I'm going to show you an example. Here's a branch here. That'll help you see it. So I want to shorten the branch, and you can treat these like pines or evergreens, where you always have to keep some green foliage at the tip of each branch. If you prune it back to just the woody part of the branch, chances are that branch will just die. And same with trunks and everything. You should always try and leave some green foliage at the tips. So I can reduce it back. You can see this branch comes up. I got a little shoot here, another one here, another one here, and then a couple at the tip. So I can, this is a very strong shoot, and this one looks really healthy. So I can prune the branch back to here. I'll leave a little bit for dieback. Here I go. Like that. So that's reduce that branch down. And then I'll do some further pruning. I'll just take the tip off that and the tip off this. Like that. And that's about as much as I can prune that branch back today, as compact as I can get it. I will be saving everything I pruned off today, either for cooking or propagation. There's a branch in here that the branch comes up and divides from 1 into 3. Now let me just see if I can isolate that. It may be impossible with this tangled mess, but let's see if I can do it. There, I hope you can see that. So this is the branch here. It divides from 1 into 3. So I've got to keep my best branches. Now it looks like the one off to the right hand side there is totally dead. That's just dead wood. So I'm only dividing from 1 into 2 living branches. However, the one is growing straight up and doesn't look very good. So I'm going to prune that one off. So here I go. Like that. Then the remains of that branch, I'm going to shorten it. So I've got a shoot coming off here and a couple here. I don't like cutting it back to just one shoot because that puts all your eggs in one basket. I would rather prune it up a little higher and see what develops. So I'm going to prune it off here. That way I'm keeping 1, 2, 3 growing tips on that branch. That way, you know, if these wither away, I have a good safety back up here. I'm going to prune this branch next. I'll try and isolate that one for you. There it is. It's a fairly complex branch. So my goal is to reduce this whole tree back. Now this is coming off that branch that I said was very vigorous and thick. So I want to take a lot of vigor out of this branch. Here's my first branch coming off that thicker branch. And then I have another shoot here and another couple here. So I'm going to play it safe once again and keep a couple of shoots. So I'll take it back to here. Like that. And then I'll trim the tops of these little shoots back. So I'm hoping all this vigor that's stored in the tree over the winter, once spring hits, it'll want to flush out everywhere. And by pruning all these tips back, it will hopefully create a lot of back budding on the tree. That's my hope anyway. Here's a look at the rest of that branch, that strong branch. So this is the one I already pruned. And the rest comes up. It comes here and divides into 2. And there's one growing on the top that I'll take off. So let me remove that one growing out the top. I'll have to take my paper away. And try and get in here somehow. I'll just prune it away roughly at first. Like that. And then I can come in and prune the rest away. Like that. And maybe even clean it up a bit better. Yeah, like that. There's a stub here I could prune away. So this divides from 1 to 2 now. So now I can do a little tip pruning on these branches. Just taking them back a bit. Like that. Now there's only one more little branch coming off of this thick one, and that's back here. So I'll just prune the tips off that. And that's got that whole thick branch pruned up now. So coming up, I've got another one coming up here. I'll prune the tip off. This only has one growing tip, so I'll just prune it back. The other part of it comes up. I've got a branch here. Another one here. So I'm going to prune off all this vertical growth here. It's just to shorten the branch back. So here I go. Like that. I can prune the tip back here. And that's got that branch pruned up quite nicely. And I'll rotate around. There's a thick branch coming out the back here. And I can shorten that one. I've got a nice branch growing out the bottom, so I can take the tip off this branch. I think that'll be a nice kind of transition. Like that. You see, using that as the branch leader, I can prune that back. Prune the growth back on here. There's one coming out the bottom. I can prune that one back. There. One back here. I'll prune that back. There's some growth way back on that branch. But That'd be pretty drastic, and there's only one bud here. Maybe with this bud gets stronger, I could shorten it back further. It'll all depend how well it grows this year. Okay, let me keep going around the tree and pruning it up, making decisions. So here's a branch here, a long branch. I'll just prune it back, taking the tips off, like that, making it more compact. So my second tree is kind of unusual. It comes up, I have one branch coming out here that kind of twists around, and then it comes up, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 branches kind of all growing from one spot. There's a close-up look of the trunk on the second tree. So quite unusual. I do really like the curvature of this branch here. It's quite nice. I think that would make a nice leader to the tree. I kind of like this branch that curves backwards too. This one, it's okay also, but there's nothing really happening much with it other than having a lot of sub-branching. I'll definitely take out this weaker one here. It's almost dead anyway. Let's get rid of that one for starters. So ideally I would prune away this branch and this one here, and then this would be the branch leader and then one branch, but that's pretty drastic. But I'm going to do it. I think it'll make the nicest style for the tree. So off goes this branch, like that, and then off goes this one. There we go. So that part comes off. I'm hoping, yeah, I kind of like that. Kind of got that wild style. Yeah, I like that. Just going to do a little cleanup here. Like that. So now I'll just trim up this branch. Now I'll try and shorten it as much as I can. There's nothing coming out front. It's all behind. The only flowing kind of branch is this one, so I can take the tip off, which I'll do like that. And then I've got a really strong one out the back, which I'll remove completely, just because it's too strong. Like that. And then I'm not going to clip the tips of this because this is the leader of the branch, and I want to get back budding here eventually, so I want to keep vigor in that growing tip, if that makes sense. Now off the back of that tree of the smaller tree, there is this other back branch that twists back, so I'm just going to prune the tips on that, like that, and try and shorten it if I can. I think I can. I'm going to shorten it to here, taking the tip off, and I've got 2 strong branches left still, so I'll just prune those back. And maybe, you know, I can prune off this one eventually. I could probably do it now safely. I think I will. Like that. So this will be my branch leader here. And as long as these branches get light, they'll stay vigorous. If they're shaded out by branches above, then they'll get weak and die. Okay, so here's where we're at. If I look at the main tree, I follow the apex up. You know, if I wanted nice flow lines, I would prune it away to here. This is kind of comes up and then ends abruptly. But again, we want that wild rosemary character in it, so I think I'm going to keep it. It's unusual, but it's visually interesting too. So I'm just going to prune these tips back. Now this apex I can prune back quite a bit. I've got a shoot back here and one out the front. So I can take that whole top off, and I will. So here I go. Like that. Kind of getting it more compact. And I'll take this back. Back. So with a tree like rosemary, there's no real rules. It's just whatever appeals to you. You can style it as formal as you want, or as wild as you want. So I'm looking at this branch now. It comes up. It comes up, and there's a shoot, a vertical shoot, and then there's a bunch of horizontal ones here. Hopefully something will grow out on the branch this year, out this side. I do want to shorten that branch. I don't want it overhanging all these branches at the back, because it kind of comes up and towards the back. So I'm going to take it here. It doesn't flow very good, but hopefully, you know, this line will smooth out in the future. Or, as I said, hopefully I'll get some budding over here and I can take all that part off. So I will shorten these shoots back also. And maybe even reduce these shoots. I'll take out the middle one here. So I'm dividing from 1 to 2. But that helps. It gets a little more light to these back branches here. There's a branch here that needs a bit of pruning. Now, off the main tree, there's a branch here that comes up. I got one that goes vertical, another one that goes vertical. They all go vertical. Interesting. I think I'm going to take it back as much as I can. So I'm going to... This one, it kind of curls up. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to remove everything out the back. Like that. Just keeping that one kind of curving trunk going up. And then I'll just kind of prune it back a bit. Actually... yeah, I'll just prune it. There's not enough branching on it to really do much else other than just shortening it all. Like that. So that's good. Now, I've got this branch that crosses the trunk, which is unusual and not according to bonsai rules, but it's interesting. It comes up and then I've got a bunch of divisions up here. So let's look at that. This branch comes up. It divides from 1 into 2. And it's very long. I'm going to take, it divides, this part of it divides from 1 to 3 here. I can take out the middle shoot or branch. Like that. That helps that area a bit. And then I can reduce these back. I can take this one back to here. And I think that's going to be it. See what happens. I don't want to reduce the vigor on this back one too much because it's already got some die back. I better just leave what growth there is on it. I don't want to weaken it and lose that branch. So I think everything is pruned up now. Let's step back and have a look at it. Here is a look at the 2 trees from the front. So it still doesn't look very tree-like. It's still kind of a wild, kind of sprawling kind of bush. But it is a little more compact. And compared to where this was last year when I first started working on it, it's come a long way. It's, you know, slowly getting a bit of style to it, a more tree-like form. It's interesting. I think this year will be the big year for it. It'll get all kinds of new back buds all over and really fill out. That's what I'm hoping anyway. That would be really cool. And then I'll have a lot more to work with the next time I prune it. Here is a look at all the branches and foliage I pruned off. So quite a bit. Make some good cuttings. Make some good potatoes too. Yeah, so that's what I took off today. There's kind of a view of the tree. So you can see it has some interesting parts to this, and if I can get it more compact, I think it'll look quite nice. This rosemary plant is just one of the many herbs you can grow as a bonsai. Any herb with kind of a woody stem you can shape into a tree-like form, and every time you prune it you can use it for cooking, so it's kind of the practical side of growing bonsai. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.